Bad.
Hey, it's not that bad. Hello.
Hello.
La, la, la. Hello, all. Welcome. It is Monday night.
It is Monday.
It is Monday night. Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and we just came from
yet another iftar dinner. Oh, I'm trying to survive Ramadan without putting on 25 pounds. But yet I did fine tonight. The good news is that I spend an inordinate amount of time talking with people. So it isn't like there's that much time for food to be going into my mouth. So that kind of helps. But yeah, no, we were down in Miami Gardens at the Islamic Center in Miami. And it was just, they're having just the month of Ramadan, a lot of the centers and the mosques have open houses so that people can come. Hello. That can come and learn and meet people. And it's just very warm and the food's really good. It's a little spicy for me. I mean, I know people really like that, but I'm kind of like, I'm weak that way.
Yeah.
I'm weak that way. It's true.
It's a very warm community.
Yeah.
And they're very
appreciative.
They're very appreciative.
It makes
really
me sad.
Appreciate people coming in and, just showing that the collective is possible if you allow it to be, but
it just makes me so sad because you see almost like this look like they're so thirsty for somebody to care about them. Like they're so thirsty for somebody to advocate. They're so like, it makes me sad that people have to be so grateful for somebody speaking for them. Well, like just makes me sad. Like it's a sad state of affairs, but in any event, they're like the nicest, warmest. Yeah.
Well, if anybody speaks for the people, it is a person that we hold in very high regard because he's been a friend before Jen got famous. All kidding aside. When we hear constantly about all the problems that are going on from an economic standpoint, a lot of people are getting part of it, but they're not getting all of it.
Right. They come close, but then our tax dollars. Then it's but our tax dollars.
Make a big mistake of misconstruing exactly how that is. And if anybody can explain it to them, this is the grand return for a good friend who's obviously been through a lot lately, but we got his back. I know we all do. You know him, you love him. From the Real Progressive, Steve Grumbine. Welcome back to Generational Change.
Hey,
thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for being on late also, because I know that you're one of our earlier bird people, and I appreciate you.
Seinfeld's too good for the early bird.
And I appreciate you coming on. And I know that this is not like your finest days lately and you having, whatever you've got going on, but I appreciate you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm glad to be here.
Good.
So you look around at all of the messaging that's been going on constantly, and we understand that people are frustrated, and they're very concerned, obviously, about what's going on in Gaza. They're concerned about what's going on just in the Middle East in general and in Europe. And yet there's this disconnect in terms of it's our tax dollars. Well, listen, I love for our tax dollars for us to have a say in them, but that's not how spending works. And yet it seems so common sense that it's like, no, the Fed, they print the money and they send it and then we get taxed. Why is that disconnect still something that you think is so prevalent for so many people?
Because Nina Turner won't stop saying it. I don't know. I
still love you,
Nina, I think that it's just hard to believe that you're giving the government your money and they're shredding it. I think the idea that they need your money because they don't really understand why they need your money. If taxes don't pay for things, why do I have to pay taxes? What's the deal, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like one of those weird buy-ins, right? They need my money so that I need their money is really what it comes down to. Okay. They need to implement an obligation that makes me have to have their money. And it makes me have to do something to get their money. Because the issue isn't a lack of income. The issue is they want to be able to provision or do things. And that means they need people. That means they need equipment and, services and raw materials and whatever. So in order to drive our behavior to do a thing, they issue a tax. And it's counterintuitive, and people that haven't given it 5 seconds of thought will think, hey, let me just go toe to toe and say he's wrong. But it is what it is. And once you realize that, the government had to spend money into the world for them to be able to collect the tax and the money that they create from the world. And this brings up the next beast and all that, and that's the big lies that we've been told that banks finance our federal government. And worse, the LOL libertarians of the world think that the private Federal Reserve owns the government and we're in debt to the Rothschilds and what else. So it's spicy, it's titillating, gives them something to talk about while they're drinking, beers at Burning Man or whatever it is that they do.
Moonshine.
And
I can't forget
ultimately it's just garbage, but it sticks because garbage sticks and truth is like boring and just sort of veers off out of the memory zone. I got to tell you, I'm so proud of you, Jen, because I have noticed in spades, not only in text message, but indeed, Katie Halper, I believe you broke down a little bit of a federal job guarantee and stuff. So
I'm doing the best I can.
Let me say, there is hope because when we first started our little Texas two-step, I remember your eyes had toothpicks in them, and you would sit there, and it was like
I try to understand
eyes. You're like, oh my God, he's talking. I hear peanuts going wah, 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 wah. And that isn't the way it is anymore. I mean, you basically spit it back at me. And I was like, holy crap, maybe I didn't waste my time.
No,
You really got it.
No,
you did. I was so happy.
No, you're the shit, man. And I'll tell you, it's funny. I find myself very often on different things or having guests. And I'll say, okay, well, I agree with you, except for really our tax dollars don't pay for anything. And I go through the whole thing. And there have even been times where I'm like, Steve would be so proud of me.
And you have people come to me and they say, I don't know if you saw this interview, and chances are, truth be told, I didn't, right? But Jen was knocking it out of the park. And I'm like, was she talking about weed? They're like, no, she was talking MMT. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So that does touch the old rogue scholar in the heart. So.
Yeah. Well, I told you a while ago that I was going to come out with federal job guarantee, that I really think that's the thing to do. So we're healthcare, housing, and jobs. And basically, I mean, the whole issue statement, I'm such a dork. I actually wrote our issue statements according to like the preamble. So like establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and go through it. And then under promote the general welfare is 21st century economic bill of rights. And I even got like Harvey's okay to like put his little like link in there and all this stuff. So no, why would I not do what makes the most sense?
You know what? I got to tell you, you're swimming upstream with this. That's the problem.
I know.
And that's why people run away from it, right?
I know. But that's why someone has to put it out there. Like I figure, look, 10 years ago, we were not all talking Medicare for all, or at least it wasn't, what it was once Bernie came in. And I feel like, okay, so now we have Medicare for all. Everyone understands that we have a serious housing problem. So maybe now would be the time to sort of just plant that little federal job guarantee, right? Like just sort of put that out there and just promote. And then, I don't expect that if I get elected, I'm getting a federal job guarantee put through, but it's got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, some of the questions that all these kinds of policy proposals, prescriptions bring out, it's beyond a meme, and that's the problem, right? It's beyond a meme. And so because it's beyond a meme and it doesn't fit neatly in a 30-second TikTok, it's challenging because you're dealing with short-term, very, very click forward, scroll, swipe right, whatever it is, very, very transactional minds that aren't really into consuming information. They're into rapid, just, okay, I got enough of that, moving on. Yeah, I think I got that, moving on. So you're up against it. I mean, if you look back a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, I should say, John Yarmouth, who had retired from the Congress, was talking to Congress, and literally he was a lone voice that was basically getting shouted down and ignored, but he held his ground. He said what he had to say, but that's what you're up against. And I think it's a shame. And I think, the unforced errors, and I'm just going to put it out there. Sorry, Nina.
Yeah.
But Nina lives and dies with talking about your hard-earned tax dollars, and I don't want my tax dollars. And she's really, really punting the progressive movement right in the junk sack every time she does it. She's got a big platform. She's got the opportunity, and she was part of Sanders Institute, knows Kelton, and still triples down. She knows Cobb Burbank and the rest of the brown elite from, Princeton, et cetera, and she still doesn't. So you're up against such a brick wall with this. And it's because they don't understand what not doing it correctly does to every policy prescription they would ever want. And this is why none of them, literally none of them, put forward any kind of policy proposals during a legislative season where they have a chance to actually enact it. They do it when there's no chance, when they're out of power, and they'll float these really grandiose ideas. But the minute they recapture it, they go back to being conservatives and do nothing.
Yeah.
So that brings up a lot of other questions that we can talk about. But
yeah.
I just,
when we first shout out to Noor, I got to shout out to this woman. I honestly, I see you. I am broken for you. So with so much love. And I honestly,
Colin,
I am so appreciative.
Colin, do me a favor. Grab the clip from Wasserman Schultz from CNN this morning if you got a chance.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Steve. Like this is the first time I've ever had anybody watching from Gaza, like or at least that said so.
There's a lot of people from Gaza following you.
That's fine. They might be following, but this is the first time somebody's commented in my chat, and it's like I'm lost.
Well,
I don't even know what to say.
Well, again, and that gets back to the whole issue of the privileged nature. And remember, she's doing this in the middle of the night.
I know. No, is it? No, it isn't.
Yeah.
No, they're like 8 hours. Yeah. Okay. So it's early. It's early.
It's middle of the night.
Okay.
So anyway, I don't think necessarily it's Nina's intention to, make the mistake, but I also think that people have a propensity to just repeat what's the common consensus, even if they know. Leaders. Well, listen. You want to talk about leaders? This is the leader of Broward County, Florida. This was on CNN this morning.
Horrific.
Oh, boy.
But there is a way out of the war where Hamas needs to accept the deal that's on the table. Israel and the United States and Hamas representatives and Qatar, they've been negotiating over how we can get to a ceasefire, and Hamas needs to accept that deal and release the hostages and save their own people who they have subjected to this war.
They haven't built shelters for, but built tunnels instead.
And using as human shields.
I don't give a
she
flying. Listen, you know what
human being.
She is. She's a revolting, disgusting shit. But here's the problem. I'm not as mad at Wasserman Schultz as I am at that. I don't give a flying F who the hell that CNN anchor is, but that CNN anchor played right into that shit. Oh, and remember what they're saying over there. You know what they're doing to these people. And yet every time you open your mouth and you say shit like that is another child getting blown to bits right now, because that's what's happening.
No, but I know what a human shield is because I was one. That's the thing, Debbie. Israel uses human shields. That's what they do when they take teenagers into places they ought not be, to plant trees in people's land that they don't own. So that's a human shield. I can't even. Like, the fact that I'm running prohibits me from saying certain things, but like, I just can't.
Yeah, you got to bite your tongue. But at the end of the day, that's why getting this message out there is very important. And that's why the whole, you can have, a foreign policy mission, which is important, because I think that most of our, whether it's a congressional delegation, our president, that's a whole other story, are very ignorant about these foreign policy circumstances in terms of what needs to be done and what can be done. But the domestic side of our economics, and when I constantly hear people say that our president is the most progressive president of their lifetime, and he's doing this and he's doing that, and I have said time and again that when it comes to the economics of this presidency, when he said within the first 100 days that we cannot pass a $15 minimum wage because the parliamentarian says we can't do it, that was the end of his presidency. There was nothing that was redeemable at that point. You had to know what was coming. You had to know that austerity politics is alive and well, and when it's painted with a nice, beautiful, broad brush by the liberal establishment, it makes it better because they're not hurting your feelings the way that Trump does.
I would do anything to help you, Nor.
Jen, stop staring at me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I think it would be prudent to get people to understand that Jen's candidacy is so essential for the mission of people becoming economically literate, which the overwhelming majority of this country, as you know, isn't. And I have to consult with people constantly about what they know and don't know about economics. I know a lot, and I still don't know a lot. That's the whole point. And that's why the message of what modern monetary theory really is all about is understanding how this thing works. Jon Stewart, he came real close, didn't come close enough, but I don't think we're that far off. And I think with somebody like Jen, if she had that platform, I think that narrative at the federal level would change considerably.
Well, when people ask difficult questions, I'm like, please call my friend Steve. There you go. That's the thing. I'm good up until a certain point. Then they start talking inflation, and then I'm like, oh. And I know it's crap what they're saying. Like, I know that, but I'm not necessarily so great at explaining how I know that and why. That's basically what it is. I was having this argument with my 23-year-old. He's like, yes, but if you do that, then inflation. I'm like, yeah, but that's not how this works. But you know what I'm saying.
So, just for shits and grins, the government prints $1 trillion out of thin air, prints it. They don't print, guys, gals, they don't print money. Right. It doesn't work that way. But just let's go the Dollarati way, and we'll just say, hey, they printed $1 trillion and they put it up on the moon. There's no inflation. They printed $1 trillion.
Right.
Okay. If I give $1 trillion to one person and they buy, I don't know, maybe they buy a lot of refrigerators. Maybe they buy a bunch of cars. Maybe they even buy some houses or whatever. And maybe they jack the prices up by gentrifier. I don't know. But the reality is that the actual printing of money, which doesn't happen, but since people are just as Nina's ridiculously wedded to the tax dollar, people are ridiculously wedded to saying the incorrect thing, saying they printed money. It didn't create inflation. The only way that inflation happens is twofold. Number one, the government itself, when it spends, because it spends money on something, when a government says, we're going to go ahead and bomb the hell out of Gaza, we need to go ahead and get weapons to send to Israel to kill a lot of people, the government sends checks to Halliburton and whoever else builds those weapon systems. That they create brand new money and they send them a check. That's how new money gets into the economy. They get the first crack at that dollar, and then they pay their employees whatever pittance they pay them, and it trickles out into the economy. That's how money gets into the economy. Otherwise, you and I, we're running out of money. What do? We go to the bank or we go to some credit card and we take out a loan. That's not money the way the government spent money. That is IOU. It's a debt. And so what happens is that money comes into existence. You pay the whatever you owe, and the bank keeps the interest. That's it. The rest of the money zeroes out because the government gave them a specific charter to allow them to create loans. Banks, even though they don't behave as public, are in fact already public banks with just shitty private sector tendencies because they've been allowed to be that way. Okay. But banks have a charter from the government to use the government's unit of account, the dollar, to give loans out. So when they talk about inflation, there's no magic pricing fairy that exists that drives prices up. It's some fat slob with a big cigar in a dark room saying, let's jack these prices up. And we talked about this before when it was talking about the 4 Ps of marketing. They always find their price point. And Isabella Weber, I think I spoke about this last time as well. She has gone out of her way to do incredible work to show that the vast majority of the inflation that we've seen is what they call seller's inflation. In other words, because they know a lot of people randomly say they printed money, and because we know that that's like a whistle, like talking about that guy Horton, who they released from prison back in the day. You remember that whole baiting to dropping the dirty shit into the water to poison everybody's mind. You remember when I think it was Dukakis had let somebody out. It was Willie Horton, I think it was, and he went and killed someone. That was the dog whistle. Blacks are all criminals and so forth. Well, it's the same exact thing, except they use the word printing money. And once they issue that flash, business says, the idiots out there are going to think that this is inflationary, so let's not prove them wrong. Let's go ahead and raise rates, because there's literally nothing that creates higher prices other than somebody saying, I'm going to go ahead and get some more money. Okay. So because we're so poorly trained in this field of study, we blame the government for quote unquote printing money. But in reality, what's happening is somebody has to do something to get that money. It's work. So work is being paid at a going rate, whatever work equals, whatever the bid, whatever the contract that the government signed with them. So that's what the government stepped up to. And that's literally how money gets out there. But one big thing happened during this whole crisis. The Federal Reserve, in conjunction with the Treasury and so forth, decided they were going to go ahead and raise interest rates because they're going to stop inflation by raising interest rates. Now, what that is attempting to do is to create very, very hard times that create people to make them stop buying things, which then in turn will bring about a recession, which will then turn around and bring about layoffs, which will then simultaneously be the blunt force trauma that quote unquote brings down inflation because people don't have money. So now you got to lower prices instead of just saying you will lower prices or we will put price controls on you. Okay. Instead of doing that, they'll make the little people suffer immensely for the price gouging. Okay. It's amazing how many people out there lick the boot of capital and literally swaddle up and snuggle capital and point down at the poors and blame them for the problems. And so what you're dealing with is a very much a meritocracy based in the libertarian Ayn Rand makers and takers mindset that has poisoned and polluted and destroyed our country worse than any other mindset in the world. Nothing comes close. The libertarian mind is anathema to a healthy society. Okay. So with that in mind, there is no such thing as just some random inflation didn't just happen.
Right.
People wrote the prices up, literally.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I love it when people are blaming things like the supply chain. Like they have all sorts of reasons why prices is going up. And I'm like, okay, well, that might have affected it at some point to a certain extent. Okay, fine. But what happens then is then everybody jumps on that and sees it as an opportunity to just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And so then it is no longer really anything other than greed. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah, I mean, like let's just say hypothetically the price of oil goes up. Okay. Oil is in every like I'm looking at my laptop, the plastic that made the laptop is filled with petroleum products. The monitor that I'm looking at filled with like everything in sight is made with petroleum products. So if the cost of that petroleum that makes these things goes up, the cost of plastic goes up in relationship to that. Okay. I mean, there's laws on the books that tell, businesses that you have to maximize shareholder value.
Yes.
So this is capitalism. And so what do? They go out there, and if the cost, this is why I get so angry when people, well-meaning as they may be, decide they're going to try to push for raising corporate income taxes. Because you've done business before. What is the first rule of business? You are going to cover the costs of doing business, and a cost of compliance, which is a tax, is another cost of doing business. And guess who gets stuck with that bill? It's us. But every do-gooder thinks, oh, well, we'll just raise taxes on the corporation and we'll do all these wonderful things, never realizing that they're putting a gun literally in our junk and blowing us off, man. I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that, when it comes down to inflation, right? Inflation is a persistent rise of all prices. It's a rise of all prices, not the rise of one price, not the rise. Hey, gas is $4 an hour. We got inflation. Well, maybe you do, but gas is definitely higher, and that would be called a relative value story. When you're talking about inflation, you're talking about all prices rising.
Yeah.
We definitely have inflation going on, but it's not because of printing money. That's just the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, remember we're 34 trillion in debt, Steve. I mean, that's important. That's a big part of the
problem. Then let me ask you. So then, when we talk about corporations and people having to pay their fair share, then what is that if it's not some corporate tax? I mean, obviously I understand we need to be taxing like the marginal tax rate, like individuals and all that, but like what's the tax rate? What's the tax solution for the corporations?
So the word we're looking for is Pigovian, meaning sin taxes. Okay. So you want to tax the bads, not the goods. And so if a corporation violates a law or does something stupid, you're going to want to put a penalty on them. Now, they will pass that penalty on, but hopefully there'll be a competitor that will price out lower and be a replacement and allow someone to make a different choice.
Fines. It's more fines than taxes, though, right? Like, so you're talking.
Well, it's not a tax. I mean, when you go to fill out your taxes, if you did something or whatever, they can, they can do that there. But again, those costs of compliance are passed on. So what I would say is the most important thing is to incentivize reinvesting in the corporation, to incentivize investing in employees, to incentivize ensuring that they're a good global citizen, and tax the living hell out of the C-suite. Tax the hell out of benefits for the C-suite, tax the hell out of stock options, tax the hell out of anything that's up there, because what do people at the top do the things that they do with the company? They do it so they get these perverse incentives to get these huge bonuses, right?
Yeah.
So we need to tax the living shit out of them, because then once you tax the living shit out of them, and it's not to pay for programs, it's a behavior modification tax, right? All these taxes are really that. And so, in the end, I would tell you that you want Pigovian taxes, sin taxes on corporations when they do bad things. You want fines, fees, and penalties for when they, I don't know, like a Norfolk Southern does something in East Palestine or something like that. you know.
Well, we're gonna transition.
So what you're saying is we like good things and we don't like bad things.
Boy, it's only that simple.
Wasn't that Tom Perez? He's like,
simple.
we're for good things.
Here are the facts with that hoarse voice.
We're for good things.
Well, if you want to see what the detriment of the current capitalist system we have results in, where the system has been gamed, if you will.
Yeah.
We're now seeing the detrimental effects of what that's all about. And of course, as I'm sure you've been paying attention, what's going on with Boeing is something that's been going on pretty much since I think it was 1994 when they had the merger with McClitchin. Do you remember the name of the company?
McConnell?
No. They merged with this guys in the chat. What was the name of the major company that Boeing merged with in like 1994, 1995?
I thought it was McConnell.
Or maybe
Airbus?
McConnell wasn't it? No, not Airbus. No, McConnell McClitchin or something like that. Maybe I was
because I remember the name of the plane was like a McConnell Airbus or
McDonnell Douglas.
McDonnell Douglas. I'm thinking McConnell.
So
there you go.
We give Randall Giovanetti.
Sorry guys, I'm having like campaign brain.
So here we are, lo and behold, or is it McDonnell Douglas? With these Irish names, we always got to spell them a certain way.
Shout out to the Irish.
Yes, big shout out to the Irish.
Big shout out to Peter asked me, he's like, do you have any pictures from St. Patrick's Day? And the truth is, not one, not ever. I've never really celebrated St. Patrick, like not out of any sort of principle. It just hasn't ever happened. But I am having a whole newfound love for the Irish right now.
So Boeing is the prime example of not just one of the biggest, if not the biggest, depending on the year or the time, the biggest military contractor in the world. And so that would explain a lot of the bullshit language that comes out of the mouths of people like Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley, because obviously they relocated from Washington State to South Carolina.
Are you suggesting they're suckling at the teat?
Just a little bit.
Of the meek?
But you'll get to see exactly why our system has completely failed, because they were one of the biggest beneficiaries of the whatever you want to call it, not a buyout, but a
merger.
No,
acquisition.
When you're talking about the free money that was given out during COVID in terms of just the
triple P loans.
Yeah, they were overly compensated, to say the least. And so you'll get to see just how effective they were able to allocate that money. Not so much.
Close family friend of Barnett says he predicted he might wind up dead.
I knew John because his mom and my mom are best friends.
He'd recently retired and moved back to look after his mom in Louisiana.
He wasn't concerned about safety because I asked him, I said, aren't you scared? And he said, and his voice and the way he would talk, no, I ain't scared. He said, but if anything happens to me, it's not suicide.
Well, that's interesting.
Somebody comes out and basically says, yeah, they're not exactly checking the planes to make sure they're tip-top shape because they're trying to cut costs to ensure higher profits. Yeah, that could probably get you dead if you're,
So
in the wrong
this guy
ended up.
This guy got unalived.
He got Arkancided in just the other day.
That's unfortunate.
So John Barnett was testifying regarding Boeing's illicit business practices, and as a result, decided to take his own life, apparently, a couple of days ago. Now, I don't believe that, and I don't really know who does. But
certainly not if that was his family or his wife or whoever was talking that said that he had specifically said, if I turn up dead, it was not a suicide. I think that's pretty telling.
Well, it's kind of the same thing that people say regarding people like Julian Assange or any of these other circumstances where you really are getting in the crossfire of capital. And I've always said, no, you could see this with any politician. It doesn't matter. And this is part of the reason why I think a lot of them will not speak on MMT, is because when you cross capital, you're putting yourself in harm's way. You just are.
Absolutely.
Because it's also the system as it stands. Second day testimony and died in a hotel parking lot. Yeah. It reminds me of Analyze That, the sequel to Analyze This, when Jelly is talking to Billy Crystal's character and he says, how did you get out of jail? It's like, I had my case thrown out. I said, how did that happen? Well, the guy who was supposed to testify against me, he thought otherwise. They said, well, why did he do that? He said, well, he stabbed himself in the back 24 times and threw himself out a 4-story window.
You're saying that like anybody saw that movie.
I'm saying
nobody saw the sequel because most people didn't see the first one.
Again, you with your anecdotes are so stupid. It's unbelievable. I'm talking about the fact that No one is going to believe that a mafioso somehow got another trial, just like no one's going to believe that the person who's literally testifying that can break Boeing at the knees somehow decided that he was going to commit suicide. There's just no explanation. And I bring up what was one of the key stories during the Clinton-Bernie primary in 2016, when there was somebody who was going to testify against Clinton about her illicit, illegal handling of a private server in her home. The guy somehow mysteriously dies from a weightlifting accident because the weights dropped on his neck. This stuff is not an accident.
I'm not saying it, he is.
I'm saying it, and I'll own it, because that's a story I'll never forget. And stories like this, I'm never going to forget. No one in their right mind would believe that this is a suicide. The problem with our corporate captured system is that this story is going to disappear in a couple of days.
Yeah.
And that's the worst part of it. Your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, two things. Number one, I don't believe it's corporate captured. I believe that it's always been this, and that we're just kind of getting hip to it. I believe that the founding documents that created the quote unquote colonial nation of the United States has always been about propping up wealth and defending wealthy landowners and saving private property, et cetera. And we've always sort of been on the outside looking in, and we just can't fathom that that's true, because we've been lied to that we're all equal with this, with that, and the other. And we've tried to even eliminate the concept of class in this country because, I don't know, identity politics has taken over. But reality is that this has always been the way it is. In fact, let me nerd it up for you a little bit. When I was getting my MBA, one of the projects that we had to do was talking about one of Marilyn Monroe's ex-husbands, Arthur Miller.
Arthur Miller.
And he did a play called All My Sons. And what it was they owned a company that created certain things for airplanes. And during the war, these planes kept going down and the pilots were dying. And they figured out that it was a product that they were developing that wasn't right. It wasn't fit for purpose. It was always going to break. And they decided that it was better to say, I'm sorry, and pay a fine than to actually fix it. So this is your standard corporate, logic, and it's backed up by law, and it's backed up by the elite, and it's backed up by LOL libertarians that lick the boot of capital on the daily, that sit there and defend it. Even though they're down here on the bottom, they believe that pee on their head is actually rain. They think that trickle down is their manna from heaven. And it is so widespread. It's trickled out. You see how many, faux leftists have merged with libertarians and haven't really realized that this kind of stinking thinking toward capital is killing us all.
This was one
and
of the
unfortunately, we have never been able to coalesce around these things because they've been masterful at taking our eyes off the class product here. They put it on identity politics.
Yeah.
So we're all shredded and splintered into a million different subgenres of resistance. And we're resisting the resistors, and we're resisting each other. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's why this stuff can happen with impunity. But I must tell you, I think this is really super important. I'm going to tie in something Jen said at the very beginning about the job guarantee with this. And that is that ultimately, you're right, Jen. You're not going to be able to pass the job guarantee unless suddenly Congress all decide, yes, let's do this. There's enough of the literal owners of capital that rotate through industry and back into politics and in and out that have control of this thing. And ultimately, workers having more freedom and having less coerciveness in terms of austerity measures being put on them, well, that means that they don't have to take whatever capital gives them. And there would be an absolute freak out. Capital didn't have access to whatever labor it wanted in whatever fashion it wanted. So ultimately, not a single one of your colleagues, if you get in office, is really going to fight to the death on this. They're not going to go to the mat for this. And this is one of the problems with the fake democracy that we have in this country. And it is fake. I'm done tiptoeing around it. It's not a real system. It's not a real opportunity for citizens to weigh in. There was an old Princeton study that a bunch of centrists tried to shoot down, but this Princeton study showed that no matter what, when push comes to shove, that the wealthy elite get what they want and the people get nothing. It doesn't matter how outnumbered they are. At the end of the day, the system is built. It's kind of like when you go to a casino and you're absolutely positive you're going to walk out of there a millionaire. But the casino understands and has every single one of these things rigged to give out a few winners here and there, just enough to keep people interested in coming back, but they're there to make money. And that's the same thing with Congress. They're literally they're the puppets. They're the mouthpieces for capital. And ultimately, if somebody grows a conscience, there's always a rotating villain to make sure that whatever they were trying to do won't happen.
Yeah.
So it's like a rigged system, a system
that
I know produce democratic results.
Yeah.
Even if you get elected, it doesn't produce democratic results. And
so I know.
We're in this position though, where let's say someone like yourself who really wants to make it happen, make something really good happen, you would need way beyond the political parties, way beyond the electoral process. You would need people organized, ready to fight, and say, I know what you did last summer, and mean it. But unfortunately, look at how horrible centrist shit libs are right now. You're watching a genocide occur in Gaza, and these people are going, what do you want, Trump? And I don't want Trump. I don't want Biden. But the point is that to them, Biden could eat babies in Gaza and it wouldn't matter because what about Trump? What about Orange Man Bad?
No, the derangement is definitely more prevalent on their side.
He wants to finish his video.
Yeah.
We're going to finish.
You know, I know that he did not commit suicide. There's no way. He loved life too much. He loved his family too much. He loved his brothers too much to put them through what they're going through right now.
And he basically told you not to believe it.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Not true. He's got too much to do, likes breathing. And he did. He had a lot of plans and things that he wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm sure that was
he likes breathing.
By the way,
yeah.
For anybody, if anybody's interested, just do a little research into what happened to the U.S. attorney out of Miami that was investigating the Broward election fiasco of 2016. Just I'm not going to get into it, but just check out what happened to him.
Yeah, but that also shows you that the system is breaking, and unfortunately, they have to resort to violence when you get to this point because they want the people to stay in line, and that's really what it comes down to. Yes, Jen is running as a Dem. If you are interested in supporting a viable campaign, which it is, make sure that you...
I have people now. Stop that. Steve has to go like this.
Steve, can you point to that QR code?
You got to point to the QR code.
Yes.
That's right in front of you.
Code. Yeah. Guys, get over there where Steve's finger is. Take out your phone and just put the camera right over it.
And seriously, guys, and I say this all the time, yes, we need money, but follow the campaign because like right now, this is probably the most people I think I've ever had on a live stream. And I do realize that most people are on Twitter, but that's still great.
Well, the sign of the devil is following us on Twitter.
Wow, we're at 666 on Twitter. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this for me is really, it's a labor of love and it's a platform and it's just me being loud. But my theory is that if I could take the labor people and I could take the environmental people and I can take the abolition people and I can take like the pro-Palestine people and all of that, and everybody shows up to everybody's issues, that's how we win.
So don't say
so I feel like no, and the electoral politics is definitely, look, guys, I know this. I'm running as a Democrat. I live in a closed primary plus 12 blue district. The only way to unseat this person is in a Democratic primary. There is no other way to do it. I assure you.
Tim Canova really proved that in spades.
Oh yeah. And he'll have 1,000,001 other people to blame. And that all might be true. It might not. But the reality is the only way to do this is in a Democratic primary. But yeah, I mean, I'm doing this because it's a platform. I am now going to be sitting on all different shows, getting national attention for the next 5 months. I could do a lot of things in that. Let me tell you something. I am a loud person. And I feel the same way about that seat. That is a 2-year opportunity to be the loudest person that you could possibly be and promote what you're promoting and try to bring together all of those different groups of people. Because the reality is, until that happens, we're never going to be anywhere near where we need to be to have something like a general strike. So we need to combine, whether it's labor, environment, anti-war, all of those people need to show up for each other and then build that community so that we could support a real general strike. And none of those things can happen unless all of the whatever. So that's what it is to me. That's what this seat is. It's about really using that seat to help people locally. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, you get to do a lot for your local peeps, but just to bring things out and make sure people understand, because right now we're just being so incredibly gaslit about so many things. And the fact that they're doing it while I'm watching stuff in real time.
Like watching our own congresswoman getting on national television saying that, oh, no, it's Hamas's fault that the humanitarian aid is not getting to Gaza.
So,
even though the Associated Press has released numerous headlines saying that it is Israel that is preventing the humanitarian aid from getting in. So, yes.
Imagine a world where instead of her sitting there, it was me. And imagine a world wherein nobody was standing there on the steps, at least not from this district, and at least not this Jew, standing there and blaming Hamas and saying bullshit about your concern for hostages. Israel has now killed their own hostages purposefully and indiscriminately. So both, we've seen both. So to sit there and play like, oh, you're concerned about the hostages is just absurd. Nobody cares. Nobody on the Zionist team gives a crap about the hostages. That's just collateral damage.
Just political cannon fodder.
And it's obvious. It's obvious. Because if the Hamas terrorists had run and hid in a hospital in Tel Aviv, they wouldn't be indiscriminately bombing the hospital. So that is how I know that they don't really care about their hostages, because they actually do know how to conduct slicker operations than what they're doing. So they don't care about their hostages. And now to hear her standing there, and she wants a 6-week ceasefire? Let me tell you something. If I was Hamas, there's no way I would agree to. Okay, so yes, that's enough time for you to get your hostages back and us to then continually just be genocided.
Hey, look.
Get the hell out of here with that.
The land grabs, the
so angry. I'm sorry. I'm so angry.
But if you think if that's bad, we got one more clip to play, because listen, we normally will not cover this because it's obviously a crock of shit. But for whatever reason,
are you
Steve
talking about
knows
Bill Maher?
Bill Maher still has a big audience for whatever reason, and people really think that he is up to snuff, probably because he wears those thick glasses. But the truth is, he's the same idiot that he's always been.
He's such a moron.
But this is a level of depravity that really, it's let them eat cake.
Have you seen this? I don't know what this is, but I'm so sick of him. I'm sure Steve will appreciate it.
As we know, Bill Maher does his new rules on Friday night.
New rules.
And he wants you to know that everything is fine. In fact, it's so good that you're an idiot if you can't see it. So here we go.
Finally, new rule: being obsessed with your mental health is bad for your mental health. I've been thinking a lot lately about a puzzle many are struggling with. Why are Biden's approval ratings so low when things are generally pretty good? Now, of course.
No, they're not. And Joe is not good. Like, it's that simple. I don't want to pause this for long, but let's just be very clear.
Improving outlook?
Improving outlook.
For who? Steve, are we having an improved outlook that I'm not aware of?
I got some things to say after this. I'll give you
There are problems. America's a big place, but wages are rising. Unemployment is negligible. The stock market is soaring. We somehow brushed off both the Trump presidency and the pandemic. Yes, inflation persists for a lot of things, but an actual good, nice-sized TV now costs $60. Who gets credit for that?
So 2 things. Number one, who needs a television? You actually don't. You need food and shelter and water, and those things actually matter, and those things are very hard to come by these days. It's nice to have a flat screen TV if you can afford it, but that's not going to make you happy or thrive. That is just an excuse to perpetuate the given system. And then the other thing that always happens is, I know you'll catch on and will comment on, they always want to talk about how good the stock market is doing, which is only good for, if you're lucky, 10% of the population. Why did you do that?
I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'm trying to answer Mario.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
sorry.
Mario will get his answer. But
Mario, scroll to the bottom of the website. It's there.
So, okay. And now you removed. Okay, now
we've got next day shipping, stuffed crust pizza, legal weed, GPS, and porn on the phone. Cheer the fuck up.
In his vagina.
Stop acting like life in America in 2024 is unbearable. Biden's ratings are in the toilet, not because he's doing such a bad job, but because a lot of Americans like to live with their head in the toilet.
Good God in heaven, this guy's out of his fucking mind.
Let it play, and so that Steve can do what he wants to do, because he obviously has some words.
Let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the numbers. Almost a third of American adults have reported a depression diagnosis at some point in their life. And while depression is, of course, a very real thing, it's also true that earlier generations never suffered from the expectation that you're supposed to feel good all the time. 1 in 8 adults are on antidepressants, and that doesn't include the ones who steal them from their kids. And the kids? The newest TikTok challenge is self-diagnosis of mental problems, because what's more of a hotbed of mental health than TikTok? In 2022, the CDC released the results of a survey on teen mental health, and over 40% said they feel persistently sad or hopeless. And antidepressant use among young males is rapidly rising, unlike their dicks. Now, without a doubt, antidepressants can be life-saving for those who need them, but here's the thing. About 3/4 of Americans who are on them haven't been diagnosed with depression at all. They just want a magic pill. We spend $6 billion a year on drug ads, all featuring someone emerging from darkness to play with a dog. And all with the
Actually, playing with dogs is a great way to deal with depression. Just a thought.
Message, you're a sad sack of shit. Now take this. Also, and don't get mad at me, I'm just citing statistics, but the people who really shouldn't be that bummed out but are acting like it anyway are exactly who you think. White women. An estimated 35% of whom are on antidepressants, although in their defense, have you seen the prices at Lululemon?
You get to deal with morons like you. That's why. Because men are...
These gals are so distraught they can barely keep their appointment with the Vietnamese girl who does their nails. Calling Dr. TikTok. But every bad feeling isn't a disease, and Americans really need to stop pathologizing everything.
I mean, that is just a fact. There are a lot of Vietnamese.
I'm sorry. Hold on one second, guys.
You know, his look is just so fitting of how much of an ogre of an old man he has become. And he is now an old man. You know, Bill Maher doesn't like to talk about it, but he's pushing 70. And he really is, you know, coming into his own. He should put on the wife beater and the, you know, the shorts.
I'm disgusted by this whole thing.
Go hang out at the shuffleboard court.
People like this should not have a moment's peace when they're in public.
Steve, your thoughts?
Yeah. Can we get rid of him now?
Now keep him up there. He keeps me angry.
Okay. You want to punch him?
He represents Democrats, period. He represents a standard shit lib, entitled, well-to-do, bourgeois parasite. And these are the types of people. I mean, we have them in the MMT community. They're these rich people telling us that Biden stuck the landing at the State of the Union as he red baited, as he sat there and called people illegals, and he stuck the fucking landing. I have become so disgusted with people, even in my own little sphere, that I'm minimizing my sphere because I'm so disgusted that this is the kind of stuff, these are the kinds of folks that they would go out and have a glass of wine with. And to me at this point, we have to really wise up that this is genuinely how they fucking feel. This isn't like a shtick. He's putting a joke on it because it's a show. This is literally how they feel.
Yeah.
I'm watching these people. Biden may sometimes stumble, but he's a really great guy. And I say, can you explain genocide and why we're funding it? They're like, huh? Like literally like bobblehead clueless parasites. And when I hear this, I'm thinking to myself, the average person did not get raises through this stuff. The average person has so much personal debt, it's not funny. The average person has had to make horrible life choices due to a lack of money, due to a lack of services available to them. We had to make, folks, my mom died on March 3rd. We buried her, so to speak, Saturday. When she was at the hospital, insurance started knocking and they said, listen, you got two choices. We can send her to rehab, but she doesn't want to go. She's too weak. She can't make it. And every time we try and do any kind of therapy for her, she starts going into a cardiac situation. So it's not really safe, but it's quality of life. What do you want to do? Or you can send her to hospice. She went into the hospital with a broken leg. She left in hospice and she died a couple months later because they couldn't keep the bed going for her and keep the nutrients going in her unless you just got unlimited funds to just keep pumping and pumping and pumping that money in there. When I see centrist shit libs, these elite New York City elite, these bougie elite people that fly all over the world for their own ego, when the rest of us are happy with Zoom, fuck the environment, fuck everything else. They're so unbelievably important that they've got to fly all over the place. Bullshit. Bullshit. And when I hear this kind of entitled, ridiculous privilege, this is what's holding us back. Beyond the real ownership class that hides above the clouds, you'll never see them. You don't interact with them. They only exist in fables, not conspiracy. The ownership class, the people that are above corporations even, okay?
Yeah.
We don't see them, but these people are their front men. They're their middlemen. They're the people that are supposed to keep the idiots like us at bay, keep us subdued, keep us questioning. It must be me. It's got to be something wrong with me that means that I'm not happy with Joe Biden. It's got to be something wrong with me that I'm worried about, genocide. There's something wrong with me that I'm worried because my teeth hurt all night and I can't sleep at night, but I can't afford to get my teeth fixed. That it's something wrong with me. Fuck you, Bill Maher, and fuck every single bourgeois shit lib that has ever defended Biden or called him Mr. President or anything else. Fuck every single last one of them. And fuck everybody else that falls for this shit and repeats it and thinks, funny. It's not. It's incredibly offensive. I'm like near tears. I'm so angry at this.
Yeah.
Because this is real stuff.
I
And
didn't
this is
see
why
this
I do the
before.
MMT stuff. It's not because I give a shit about accounting. I could give a crap about accounting. But I care about it because I want to uncover the lies these fuckers tell. And so when you hear this stuff and you see this stuff, I want you to understand a couple of very important things that have happened over this supposedly great economy. Number one, with the interest rates hiked to the gills, that is all brand spanking new money given, literally given to the wealthy people that have bonds. The wealthy people that already have money get more money. That's why we didn't go into recession, because GDP, what does GDP measure? GDP measures every fucking transaction in the economy. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't say good, bad. It's just all of it. Okay. When Wall Street's doing good, hey, the economy's great, isn't it? For the rich. But for Main Street, they're sitting there slogging through, listening to some fucking asshole like Bill Maher and others that should know better in the economics profession, that should absolutely know better. When people are struggling and they sit there and they say, oh, it must be, they're Trumpers, or they don't like, they're ageist, or they come up with some other worthless explanation for why they're upset, why they're hurting, and why they're not going to, quote unquote, fall in line. When I hear that, my blood boils, because I know, unfortunately, instead of fighting back in the correct way, our big allies that have the big platforms to get all the fucking likes and tweets are going to go out there and talk about their hard-earned tax dollars going to Gaza or Israel. They're going to talk about their hard-earned tax dollars. The people that should be fighting, instead, they're going for the likes and clicks, saying the most vapid and vacuous bullshit imaginable, and wondering why guys like me come in there and fucking punch them in the mouth on social media. Because I'm so sick and tired of people squandering platforms when guys like this go out there. I'm not even joking. I got lectured by some day trader, some guy who works on Wall Street, okay, who's sitting there telling me, Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act put the CHIPS Act out there, and look at all this money that's come out. That's true. The money that was spent on the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act and all that shit put new money into the economy. It put it up at high level, and it trickled down like Reagan. But hey, yeah, it happened. It's the same thing with the money spent in the interest income channel through the interest rate hikes. That's new money, kept the economy going. And if you just look in aggregates, think about this. When you go to school and the teacher says we're going to grade on a curve, they usually take out the outlier at the top and the outlier at the bottom, and find a medium to kind of baseline that, because they don't want people failing or whatever. Well, in this case, GDP doesn't do that. GDP just says everything's hunky-dory, look how great it is. And then they sit there and map it through. When you look at people at the bottom, I'm telling you right now, I mean, I talk about it all the time because it's that important. I've got teeth that are just literally gaping, nerve endings sticking out that I can't do anything about. I'm not abnormal. I'm one of millions of people that are just exactly in the same boat. And the worst part is, on paper, I look like I make good money. But what they don't take into account is all the shit everybody in this country has had to go through, whether it be divorces, whether it be bankruptcies, whether it be losing a house in foreclosure, whether it be jobs just being taken away from them, being out of work for long periods of time and have to catch up. In the end, people are at the bottom taking whatever fucking comes their way and trying to survive. And you've got these fucking shitheads that are doing just great, lecturing us about what a goddamn great economy it is.
Yeah.
It's
well, how about, I went off the other day. We did the clip of Ben Shapiro basically saying that people should work until they die. I know that are you familiar with that? But like, I just lost it with that. It's the most, like, you could work until you're 80. Like, yeah, if your job requires your job, probably, that's not very hard. But I mean, it's just the level of entitlement is suffocating.
The other thing about the liberal perspective, the affluent liberal perspective, let's be specific about that, is the narrative never changes. It never becomes, what does the president have to do to get the votes from the working people? It's always shut up and do as we say. And there's never self-reflection. But I really believe that the reason there isn't any self-reflection is because they know the system's broken, and they're going to try to prop it up for however long they can before the people are at the gates demanding change, or they're going to have pitchforks. And then you decide how you want it to go, because it's not going to be pretty. And people are going to remember the likes of Bill Maher, and they're going to remember Ben Shapiro and the things that they say. They're worth $100 million plus. And these are the people that you're looking to. These are people that are not doing anything of value. They're not creating jobs. They're not doing anything that is improving society.
I have to give this props. Sorry. Kudos,
they're just commentators. They're just people that offer an opinion, and they get paid a lot of money to do it. Yeah. And they are exceptionally beta men. Exceptionally beta men.
Can I ask you to take a step back for a second, Peter, and think about something? And this is hard. I don't want to say this is a brand new revelation, but this is something that I've been working on for about 8 months now. Okay. Maybe a year. And when you think about, we always assume that the system was built to serve us, but it's broken. And we all assume that. I mean, I've assumed that for years of my life. I assume that. You see people go, how come there's money for war, but there's not money for schools? Perfectly legitimate question, but very naive, kind of childlike, right? Because ultimately, we have to stop believing, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, not because I'm being some bloviator. We've got to stop believing the system was built for us, okay? The books, the literature, the history, Howard Zinn, many others have shown that the system was always designed for and by wealthy white landowners. It has never been for the people out of doors, and that's us. We are the people out of doors, okay? And when you think about that, we're confused because people run on these platforms for votes, but it's not. The Electoral College picks the president. We don't pick the president. There is no democracy. That's not democracy. Okay. And so when you think about us as people feeling this ownership stake, I call it the oligarch Olympics. Because it's not really about us. I know for a fact there are a lot of dumb people out there that would probably support Biden because they thought Hillary was cool. Just dumb, right? There's no getting around it. Dumb. But ultimately, it doesn't even matter. It's all about manufacturing consent. Go to Noam Chomsky for this one. Yeah. Okay. It's about making us feel like we had a say while simultaneously having zero to show for the say. Okay. And I'm trying so hard to make sure I'm not hyperbolic about this because this is a do not pass go, do not collect 200 until you have this moment to reflect and realize this is not a bug. This is a feature. This is intended. This is the way the system's meant to go. When you understand austerity is a tool of capital and state combined to ensure the living, real material conditions for the working class are made more difficult to force them to do certain things, to change their behavior the way the ruling class wants them to, all the while making them feel like there's no alternative. There's no other choice than to do this. And because people don't understand, they say, well, they had to do this. Look at Obama. He said we were out of money. We've got to take a credit card out for the People's Republic of China. That's immoral. We've got to tighten up our belts. We've got to eat our peas. He said that knowing full well that it was a lie.
Yeah.
Every single one of them have said, in fact, how awful is it that someone named Dick Cheney was able to go in front of everyone and say, deficits don't matter. Reagan proved that. And he's not wrong.
On national television.
Yes.
Wait, before I forget, I have to say something. And you know that these thoughts come and go very quickly. So I got to get it out there. So for a long time, I've been harping on the fact that I got money when I ran in 2020 from people in every single state except Wyoming. And I've been harping on this for a while. I want to give a shout out to the Mr. and Mrs. in Cheyenne, Wyoming that just sent me a nice check. And literally in the memo, it says a gift from Wyoming, and they actually mailed a check to me. So I shout out, I am now, I cannot no longer blame Wyoming, but I'm sorry I got off on that because I've always blamed it on the Cheneys that maybe that's why I didn't get anything from Wyoming. But now I have to, Wyoming, I love you, Wyoming. You are now in the fold. Thank you. Sorry.
Steve.
No, it's okay. I want you to understand though, that the more we believe in this system, it's like short sheeting a bed. We can't figure out why our legs don't go to the bottom. They're supposed to go to the bottom. Why don't they go to the bottom? Well, you short sheeted the bed, of course. I mean, it's designed not to let your feet go to the bottom.
He doesn't know what it is. I knew he wouldn't know what it is. Okay, so this is
so next time you have a slumber party, Peter, Okay. Next time you have a slumber party, take the sheet.
I knew he didn't know what you were saying.
Take the bottom of the sheet up under the pillow.
Right.
Bring it all the way down till it gets to halfway point, and then bring the other end up like it's the top. And when they go to get in, their legs
they can't get
stuck.
in. They short shape the bed.
Well, they do that in hotels.
No, they don't do that in hotels. They just tuck it in the hotels. He's talking about the sheet is essentially folded in half.
I need a visual.
I'll show you. I'll explain it to you when we're done here.
We'll do spoons, Peter. We'll do spoons.
Thank you, honey. I appreciate it. Steve,
the grizzled old man and the spoon boy.
Steve, this is what you would call an abbreviated show this evening.
And I feel bad, but I actually have an interview I'm doing after this.
That's okay. It was great to talk to you guys.
We want to make sure that you're back in the flow. You're feeling good. And I think we hit some really salient points tonight.
I just like to see you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate this. It was good to be back. It's nice to talk to you all. Yeah. I am not at my best. I'm extremely depressed, and I'm trying really hard to not be there. So thank you for bringing me back and letting me do my talk. So
I
good luck in your interview and good luck in your candidacy.
Yeah, and of course, as you know, if we can get anybody to the federal stage that can speak truth to the real economics of this country.
Yeah, they're not going to necessarily listen to me, but I'm loud.
No, but you will have a bigger audience. And instead of having 800 people, maybe have 8,000, maybe have 80,000.
We've never had this many people.
Think of it like this. Instead of having Nina Turner get a bunch of us going to her saying, for Christ's sake, Nina, it's not your tax dollars, right? Just know that you have a million of us going, yeah, right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. I'm working it as good as I can.
Steve, plug your show for tomorrow night so that people know that you're going to be
Macro.
On. Let them know.
Yeah, so we have a Tuesday night show over at Real Progressives called Macro and Chill. And it corresponds with our podcast that goes out on Saturdays called Macro and Cheese. And so we get together as a group of people. We listen to it collectively together and we talk about it so we can learn these things, because we're not really media in the normal sense of media. We don't cover breaking news. That's not really our jam. What we do is we're trying to teach people revolutionary ideas and class-based economics so that they understand not just what Marx said however many years ago, but how it really works today with Marx's understanding of capital. Put it together and it's like peanut butter and jelly or Reese's peanut butter cup. It goes together real smooth.
Macaroni and cheese.
You got it. That's why. That's it.
I love it. I have my macaroni and cheese sticker is still like the most prominent sticker on my laptop. So I'm regular, and it's also right where the part where the little plug goes in. So I always have to say it goes right where the cheese thing is. That's how I know.
Awesome. You guys, thank you for having me.
Appreciate you always, brother.
I'll check in on you in a little bit. I know I'm going to have, I'll have to text you.
All right. Sounds good. Take care, guys.
Bye.
So we do have one more thing that we have to cover before we go.
But do we? I have an interview I have to go do.
No, we both do, because apparently I have to be a part of it.
Why do you have to be a part of it?
I don't know. He asked me.
Oh, all right.
I don't need to be.
Yay for you. If he wants you to be there, you can be there. I don't even know who this is we're interviewing with, but that's fine.
Strackbine has I forget the name of his show, and I don't know if it's.
But I don't care. You can sit here with me.
So the last thing that we have to cover, and again, this comes full circle to what we were talking about earlier. You know, a lot of the corporate media will go to great lengths to try and ensure that nothing is said about what's going on in Gaza. This is literally how a genocide is committed. The people know, but not everybody knows.
Well, it is and it isn't. This is the first time that a genocide is being committed that we're watching it happen.
Broad daylight, yes.
And so to say that this has happened is no. It's amazing that you can still gaslight people that are watching something in real time. Like, I really feel like people, the 90s called, they want their political messaging back. It's like, I'm fascinated that people are sitting there trying to gaslight me about something that, something that I'm watching in live time. And it's just absurd. So, you know, at some point, I think it'll wear out its welcome and it'll just start getting rotated into the circular file where it should belong.
Before we play Jonathan Glazer's clip from the Oscars, make sure that you do go to gen2024.org.
Yes.
Make sure that if you would like to contribute, you have multiple options to contribute.
We do. Apparently, there's something a little glitchy. Our website is only up completely today. So just be aware.
You can go to Act Blue and contribute. If you do not want to go to Act Blue, remember, we always say, if you go to Act Blue, don't leave a tip.
No.
We tip, but not the Democratic establishment.
We tip service workers.
Did you know that Act Blue donated $75,000 to Nancy Pelosi? I always found that to be
Whatever.
so incredible.
So
because she needs the money.
We do have an option on our website that will allow for a non-Act Blue donation. Chris said he tested it was a little glitchy. He had to use Google Pay. I will make sure to look into that. But in any event, you can always mail checks. And, you know, there are people, actually, thank you to Wyoming again. There are people that like to put checks in the mail, and that's there as well. So I do appreciate the not wanting to go through Act Blue. If there is anything that we can do to facilitate that, whatever that glitch is, I will get to the bottom of it. But today was our first day with our full website up. So yeah, little patience.
You were on a podcast the other night with Miss Rebecca Azur, which was the Leftist Mafia.
Yeah.
Of course, big shout out to our friend, Mike Figueredo.
Well, I like all those guys. It's Mike, it's Lance, it's Matt. It's now Rebecca, who I didn't know from before.
So it is Dieter. So I was right, and you're wrong.
But why is it? No, because deter McBusiness makes so much more fun, makes so much more sense. Because the idea is you're deterring what is considered McBusiness. Like, that just made sense to me. I probably overthought it.
You're making a lot of phone calls, apparently.
I made too many phone calls.
Not too many, not enough.
Let me tell you something. I got in 52 minutes of call time today, and that's it. And I'll be hearing about that tomorrow. I'm doing the best I can. Like, if I have at least a half an hour open, I will sit down and do the calls. And the responses are funny. It ranges from people like not even remembering that they ever supported me in the first place to people that are like, hey, I just saw you on this show. Like, that's so cool you're calling. So it's a very wide range. And I tell you, people, I really do not like dialing for dollars. Like, if I were just calling people to shoot the shit and chat with them, I'm good.
If you have any sympathy for Jen, then make sure that you get over.
Yeah, it's sad.
And make a contribution. Use the QR code.
But yeah, I mean, it's funny because the reason I'm not good at phone calling banking is I end up in conversations with people, and yeah, they might end up donating, but like most people would probably go through 100 calls in the amount of time that I go through, like 25, because I end up talking with the people, which that's the part of it I kind of like. And then I have to get around to asking them for money, which I really hate. So I'm not the most proficient at it, is what I would say.
So that you guys have a big, loud opinions about where Jen should be going on certain podcasts. If you have a suggestion, you know, anybody who wants to get in contact,
yes,
email media@gen2024.org.
I'll talk to anybody.
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure there's people I wouldn't talk to.
There's also apparently somebody who would require you to travel, and you know, that's not.
Well, no, because that's a different thing. And here's the reason, guys, that I've said this before about traveling to go on shows. I am running a grassroots campaign based on the principle that we're trying to transform politics into service. So the idea that I would spend money and/or resources to fly somewhere out of my district to go on a show when most shows can be done virtually is just a little bougie for what I'm trying to do here. And so I don't think it's worth it. And it would really depend. Like, if it was some amazing opportunity, or what I knew would lead to such good fundraising for my team that it would be worth it. So that's really what it comes down to for me, is that it needs to make sense where, why don't the two of you get together and form a lefty sports podcast?
We'll do that after you win.
And as far as the person recommending that I hire Steve is definitely one of my economic advisors. Like, there is no doubt about it. And I would move heaven and earth to make sure that he was properly compensated for all of his contributions, regardless of anything. So that's that. But yes, I like to talk to smart people.
You're going to turn the state from tyranny to service by asking nicely. Actually, Jen is pretty influential, even though you think it's a joke. You can think what you want.
Who thinks I'm a joke?
She thinks it's a joke.
Who does?
Base Chad Thunder joke. He thinks it's a joke.
Actually, you know what? You're wrong. And the reason you're wrong is because when you're the type of person who can go from hanging out with radical leftist anarchists and be just as comfortable going out and hanging out with very, very conservative Trump Republicans and having really meaningful, interesting conversations and discussing things with reason, I actually have some thoughts of that's inspired. So I don't think it's a matter of asking nicely as much as I think it's a matter of approaching things with logic and reason and not tribalism and anger. And I think that when you do that, people are amenable to new ideas. That's all I'm suggesting.
Jay, whether it's Brianna, whether it's anybody, if they're interested in having Jen on,
I'm happy to go on. No,
can't be chasing people down.
I'm not doing it again.
You know, this is the congressional race. No, no ego whatsoever.
That's him saying it, not me.
But this is the congressional race of the year, as far as I can see, especially with the backdrop of what's going on.
I love you, Mark Fabian, and I'm getting old too, and I have to first now go on an interview in a few minutes. But yes.
So, without getting sidetracked, you know, we appreciate you guys. Not going to be able to run the names tonight, but we have to play this clip real quick. Jonathan Glazer wins his Oscar, and this is what he has to say regarding what's going on right now.
Thank you so much. I'm going to read, I'm afraid. Thank you to the Academy for this honor, and to our partners A24, Film 4 Access, and the Polish Film Institute, to the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum for their trust and guidance, to my producers, actors, collaborators. All our choices were made to reflect and confront us in the present, not to say, look what they did then, rather look what we do now. Our film shows where dehumanization leads at its worst. It shaped all of our past and present. Right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. Whether the victims of October the 7th in Israel, or the ongoing attack on Gaza, all are victims of this dehumanization. How do we resist? Alexandra Bistron Kaladziejczak, the girl who glows in the film as she did in life, chose to. I dedicate this to her memory and her resistance. Thank you.
Oh, I know he caught some shit for this.
He got destroyed for it by corporate media, by saying what a terrible person he was to even bring this up. And what I always find interesting is who in the audience is clapping and who isn't. And it looked like a shit ton of people in the front weren't clapping at all, which just goes to show you how in the biz they really are.
Yeah.
Because they know where their bread's buttered. They're cowards, and nobody's a bigger coward than Amal Clooney. She's the biggest coward of them all, because those are her people being massacred.
Yes, Mario. Mario makes a very good point.
Now, if you really want it, I have to know that some donation was made to Jen's campaign, and you will get your. I'll give you
a ticker.
I'll give you Arnold. Will I give you McConnell?
But one thing we do want to say is, if there's people that are international and you really like what we're doing, or you want to support, and you obviously cannot donate to the political campaign, you can absolutely still become a Patreon of Generational Change. And by doing that, you are helping us spread that voice. And so it really does help. And it helps us be able to pay our producer, and it helps us be able to do things that are promoting the campaign without you donating to my campaign.
Yes. And that goes for people like Travers and people like Andrew.
We're looking at you.
Yeah, if you guys are international, remember, you can contribute to the podcast.
Looking at you, Irishman.
Or Canadian.
No, but I'm talking to Travers.
Yes, and so that is an indirect contribution to the campaign.
Correct.
Because we will appropriate the funds appropriately as needed. So just keep that in mind. If you are
everything for Gen Change is for Gen Change, but Gen Change is promoting the campaign, and it helps us get the message out. So it's key.
So for Dieter, I was right. Travers.
It's the first time I think you've been right about a name.
Law from New York. Yeah, I know.
We do not have time to go through names. I do love you guys, but this is, and I'm excited. This is the most people we've ever had, and I really do have an interview. And see, the thing is that Peter runs on Peter time. And he has no idea. He has no issues. Like, he'll be late. He'll come in at the last second. And I don't like to work like that.
Please acknowledge that you've made a contribution to Jen's campaign so I can do.
You'll do it next time. I need to go and do my interview. So we're going to wrap because I want to go be respectful and do the interview we agreed to.
No, you got to go. You got to go now.
I do. Please do.
You got to go do your interview.
I do.
It's very important.
This is what Peter does. He sits there and he just procrastinates.
No, I'm not taking my time. I told him
he does it all the time. I'm sorry.
I told him you'd be there between 10:30 and 10:45.
I know, but it's rude. So let's go. And plus, it is late. And it is still, I'm first doing an interview at 20 to 11.
Are you going to get to the chopper?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Are you getting to the chopper?
The chopper? Get that. Will you stop? Could we please, people? What do we have coming up on Thursday? Oh, thank you, Chris. You rock.
Thursday the 21st. I've got to check. I believe. Okay. So this is big, guys. Thursday at 1 o'clock, and this is going to be interesting for me because I don't know how I'm going to pull this off, but I'm going to have to figure out a way because I will be in Orlando at an important convention, but I will find a place where I can go and get
we have Jill Stein.
So candidate for U.S. president for the Green Party ticket, Jill Stein, will be making her debut on Generational Change at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday.
And then next Monday, we don't have anything yet. And then next Thursday is where we have Sierra.
Yeah, so I got to get somebody booked for next Monday.
All right, but we're working it. So guys, Jill Stein, 1:15 on Thursday. Anybody who is mean will be kicked out. We don't have mean.
So
we have thoughtful discussion.
I just want to come on here and say thank you to Chris Garrett for giving a wonderful contribution to this campaign. And I am liking how everybody thinks this is.
And you're right. We can, if the people who donate to Gen Change, we can allocate money to an Arnold mask.
Avatar. That's so this great movie. But could you imagine if I was in there?
No.
I would have taken my chopper and I would have taken my AK-47 and blown all those people to bits.
It's actually pretty good. You've actually gotten pretty good at it.
I am here to endorse Jen Perlman for Congress. She would make a fantastic governor.
I don't think Arnold would really be
He would make a
endorsing
fantastic
me.
governor of California.
Sure. Although, as far as Republicans go, he's definitely not one of the worst people in the world.
No, that's because I'm trying to save humanity.
I have problems
with
him for other reasons.
You want to know how to defeat
Can
them,
we have to wrap? Guys, I don't want to be rude to people. I'm trying to be nice.
See you Thursday.
Bye all.